How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Hold on. Sorry. Okay, I'm ready.
We've learned about Title IX in regards to sexual assault in this class, but today's headlines are discussing it in regards to transgender rights, particularly with people using the bathrooms that correspond to their gender identity. Just to refresh your memory, Title IX prohibits sex discrimination in any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This definition is from an article by Liz Gates. Last year, the Obama administration expanded the definition of Title IX to include transgender people and to include gender identity, as described in an article called Title IX in the Restroom. On February 22, 2017, the Trump administration rescinded the Obama administration's expansion that protected students' rights to use the bathroom of their choice. According to Statista, 38% of people are against allowing people to use the restroom that corresponds to their gender identity. Today, I want to explain how and why you should oppose this action to uphold and reinforce the Obama administration's ruling on Title IX. This is not a party issue, this is a human issue. One of the main components of the discussion surrounding Title IX and transgender rights is the concept of bathrooms. And the opposition's main stance is that people should use the bathroom that corresponds to their sex assigned at birth. This stance, however, is unscientific and very exclusive because 2% of people are intersex, according to the United States affiliate of the organization Intersex International. While this may seem like a small number, that's 148 million people worldwide. And some even argue that this number could be up to 1 in 100 babies. This data is imprecise because doctors are legally allowed to choose the binary sex of a baby and perform operations to attempt to assign this sex to a baby, and some people never even find out that they had one of these operations until they are much older and much later in life, or never at all. Another counter-argument is that transgender people or cisgender people, who are people whose gender identity aligns with their sex assigned at birth, will go into these sex-specific locations, such as bathrooms or locker rooms, to assault or harass people. According to NPR, at least 70% of trans people have experienced harassment in bathrooms, and 8% of their survey respondents had been physically attacked in a bathroom. I looked to find data or evidence of transgender people attacking or harassing cisgender people in bathrooms, but I couldn't find anything. It just doesn't happen. Who doesn't want to just go to the bathroom, wash their hands, maybe fix their hair and leave? I did, however, find data about the percentage of violent victimization by victim-offender relationships, and most crimes are committed by someone that the victim already knows, not a stranger in a bathroom, regardless of gender identity of either the victim or the perpetrator, according to this chart from Statista. Currently, Gavin Grimm, a transgender teen from Virginia, is going to the Supreme Court to fight for his right to use the restroom that aligns with his gender identity, as detailed in an article by Julie Mazziata. In April, according to an article from the ACLU, a 3-judge panel in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled in Grimm's favor. In May, the 15 judges of the court declined the school board's request for the full court to hear the case. So the school board appealed to the Supreme Court, which in August put the appellate ruling on hold. So this all happened before the Trump administration came out in opposition to the Obama administration's expansion of Title IX. So now, if the Supreme Court even hears the case at all, they could rule that it applies to discrimination against transgender rights, as well as the sex-based discrimination it already protects against, or it could rule in favor of the school board and its lawyers, who say Title IX does not apply to this marginalized community, and that states should decide for themselves. Can you imagine being a senior in high school, finding a case in front of the Supreme Court just to use the bathroom? I think that's absolutely ridiculous. As complex as the Title IX debate is, the issue of transgender rights goes far beyond what bathroom people can use. That's just not what it's about, just as the civil rights movement wasn't about drinking fountains, bus seats, or lunch counters. To begin, Title IX does not protect students of the LGBTQ+ community against bullying, as an article by Adele Kimmel states. Additionally, 7 trans women of color have been murdered this year already. As I learned from the Anti-Violence Project. Press and justice in regards to these brutal murders is often delayed because of misgendering of the victims and denial of a homicide, as opposed to denial or questioning of the event of a homicide, as opposed to another cause of death. In the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs' most recent hate violence report, which I believe was from 2015, 62% of homicide victims in hate crimes were people of color. 67% of victims were transgender people or gender nonconforming people. And 54% of these victims were trans women of color. Our social movements have to be centered around these ultra-marginalized groups. But I concede that maybe we must work one step at a time, and a Title IX expansion would be a step in the right direction. Now that you know about Title IX's importance and its place in the fight for transgender rights, I want to explain how you can help. You can call your representatives and donate to groups like the American Civil Liberties Union and the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund. On a more personal level, that's super easy to implement into your daily life. Use people's proper pronouns. This is a pyramid of hate violence, and it starts at the bottom with stereotyping, belittling jokes, and non-inclusive language, and goes all the way up to genocide. But also bias-motivated violence like murder and assault, which I detailed before, is on that spectrum as well. By using inclusive language, we prevent the normalization of these microaggressions and prevent further violence. Title IX needs to be expanded to include the protection of transgender rights, and there should be more legal protections for this group as a whole. Especially in schools, in bathrooms, the most vulnerable group of transgender children. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and Title IX strives to protect that. As citizens and human beings, we must refuse to settle for anything less than respect and equality for all.